Welcome to C3 in This Together, 30 minutes in our own voice, a mental health and suicide awareness series. Today, our topic is out of pajamas into purpose. Wow, I will say that again. Out of pajamas into purpose. We will hear from someone with a lived experience who is coping, managing, and navigating mental health and suicide. My hope is that together we will be the generation that ends the silence, the shame, and the stigma of mental health and suicide. I'm so honored today that our guest is Jill Mays. She is the CEO of Ezer Counseling LLC in Stone Mountain, Georgia. She has an amazing story of hope, recovery, and resilience. Jill, we are so honored to have you for this series.
Thank you, Dr. Cassell. I'm so excited that you invited me and just happy to participate in this dialogue today. What you're doing is so important.
Thank you so much. And my friends, you don't know this, or you may know this, but Jill is one of the leading voices in the state of Georgia as it relates to mental health and disability awareness services. So I'm just so honored that she agreed. I had to beg her, I had to plead with her. I mean, I'm teasing, but this is an amazing lady, and we're so grateful for the thousands of people that you serve here in the state of Georgia. So again, thank you for taking the time to be with us. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Tell us your story, Jill.
Well, I've been thinking, Dr. Cassell, how to condense it down. So I'll try. Um, it kind of starts out, I guess, when I'm born. They always say when people are born, if it's a girl, they're like, you're just like your mother. But I think I was a little bit more like my father. My father is a Baptist pastor. He was a one-time facilities administrator at a hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. And my dad was always busy, but my dad was always somebody that I looked up to. I just admired him so much for all that he achieved, the ways that he helped people, big ways, little ways. And I always wanted to be just like my dad. So I kind of set off on that path and I was just rolling along on that path. I mean, from kindergarten just on, anything I set my mind to do, just like my dad told me. And I think you guys will see that 90 balloon in the backyard. My dad just celebrated his 90th birthday here with me and my family. So lots of years of influence, but so I'm chugging along. Anything I set my mind to, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can achieve it. I can achieve it. I can achieve it until the time when I couldn't. And that was really hard for me. Got married to a wonderful guy that I met right after I graduated from college, and we dated for 3 years and we got married. And since we had dated for 3 years, we're like, well, we don't really need to wait to start a family. We just jump right in and do that. Not thinking, that there would ever be a problem with that. My mom had 8 kids. My aunt had 8 kids. Having kids is what women in my family could do really well. But my husband and I started trying and went for a whole year, no pregnancy. 2 years, no pregnancy. 3 years, 4 years, no pregnancy. And every year, I would just get more and more depressed because I'm like, why can't we do this? What's wrong with me? Even reflecting back, did I do something in my past that, maybe God is punishing me for? Or did I do something to mess up my body? But I couldn't come up with anything. I felt like doing all the right things, but still no pregnancy. So my husband and I decided we'd see a fertility specialist. And we did, and we had a plan set. And so we were off on that plan. And I remember one day, we had gone to the clinic. My husband gave his sperm sample and they did the washing or clean or whatever they do with it there, put it in a little vial, gave it to me in a brown paper bag and said, off to the OBGYN with you. So I set out to go to my OBGYN's office, just excited that this was going to be the time that worked. But I got to my OBGYN's office and this is still unbelievable to me to this day. Got there and there was a sign on the door that said that the office was closed due to the weather conditions created by Hurricane Opal. Now, y'all may not remember Hurricane Opal, but Hurricane Opal was in Florida.
Uh-huh.
I'm right here in Metro Atlanta. I'm like, what in the world is
Mhm.
a hurricane in Florida got to do with my doctor's office right here in Atlanta? And I sat down on the steps outside the office, and I just kind of wailed and wept because I'm like, nature even doesn't want me to
Wow.
have a baby. And that is just like a shattering feeling, just something that's so out of your control that, and again, I felt like if I set my mind to it, I could do it. But that moment I really realized that no, I maybe I can't do this. But um, so we kept on trying. We were determined that this was going to happen. So we did that cycle one more time and came back to the office.
Mhm.
And praise God, that next time we were pregnant. But what had happened in between time is I worked at a women's shelter for homeless women. And there were women every day. And I have to admit, I was very resentful of women who I saw with children who, were just barely able even to take care of their children because of substance misuse, domestic violence. And I was like, well, God, these women are having such a struggle taking care of their kids. Me and my husband, we would be able to do it. Um, but so as part of my role in that, I was able to take the women who were there to a revival one night. And Pastor TD Jakes was the speaker at that revival. And he's going on, really powerful message. But I kind of wasn't into it because I was just in this depressed, isolated world of my own. But he walked over to the edge of the platform, looked me right in the eye in the middle of his sermon, and said, faith is enough to make a barren woman believe God for a baby. And at that moment, my spirit just left. Even though, I was in this depression, I was like, God can do this. I'm just going to have faith. So we went to the doctor's office that next month. Before we even did the insemination, the nurse said, hey, let's go ahead and just do a test now. And I was like, okay, whatever. She went away for about 10 minutes, came back, you're pregnant. And that pregnancy, that is my daughter, Shelby. She's a Rockdale County social worker. She's 26, living and thriving. And then after that, we got 2 boys to boot on the back end of that. So God worked that one out for me. And I thought, okay, home free, little bump in the road. Let's keep it moving. But I never did quite recover totally, I guess, emotionally from that. I was always kind of on guard for, the next thing that was going to come up that I didn't have any control over in my life. I guess I kind of developed control issues there. So again, still working alone. And I'm still working at the women's shelter. But we had kind of a change in leadership there. And the leadership there and we didn't quite see eye to eye on things. And so one day, I got called over to the office and, just out of the blue, I got asked to resign from my position. And really, if you kind of read between the lines, it was basically either you resign or we're going to fire you. You can, let us fire you or you can go with this severance package. And so, of course, I had kids to take care of. So took the severance package, but I was devastated. That was a job. I thought I was going to retire from that job. I felt like that was my calling where God had placed me. And, just like that, I'm unemployed. I, I really just didn't know what to do. Again, I'm bouncing back to thinking, I'm supposed to be able to do whatever I want to do, whatever I put my mind to. But that just turned my world upside down. And then you add that to, the not quite bouncing back, as well from the infertility struggles for 5 years, and then add on to this unemployment. And it was difficult for me to find another position, and my depression just grew and grew and grew. And I found myself eventually just not wanting to get up out of the bed in the mornings. I got to the place where, I wasn't showering. I wasn't changing my clothes. My kids would come home from school and like, Mama, didn't you have that same thing on yesterday? I was just kind of having problems with my concentration, had a couple of fender benders because I just, I wasn't focusing well. And we got a letter from school in the mail one day. My husband took two of the kids to school, but I was responsible for driving my oldest son to school. And of course, my depression, some days I just couldn't get out of the bed to do that. So we got a letter from the school saying, if my son was absent or tardy one more day, they were going to call defects on us. And you would think that that'd be enough to motivate me, but I just still couldn't get it together. And I was a licensed professional counselor in the field. I'm helping other people,
Mm.
but I couldn't help myself. But I was also too embarrassed at the time to reach out for help. 'Cause I'm like, counselors aren't supposed to, need counselors. Even though in my grad program, they told us, if you're a counselor, you should have a counselor. But I took that to mean, somebody for supervision,
Mhm.
somebody to check in on, what to do with a case with somebody else, but not for my own mental health. But I was struggling deep, deep, deep in my depression, and eventually got to the place where I had decided I can't do this anymore. I just don't want to live in a world where, I have no control. There are times when it seems like, God is just going to turn the page and be against you. And there's nobody I can reach out to for help. It was just really an awful time. And my husband has a rifle that we kept in our garage. I didn't know how to shoot the rifle, but I said, let me just maybe ask him how you do this. And I asked my husband, and he wasn't even surprised that I asked, didn't wonder why I asked or anything. And he was just like, well, maybe one day we'll go to the gun range and I'll show you. But he basically like, well, here's all you do. And I was like, well, okay, well, I'm kind of prepared. And so I had decided, I was going to take my own life. But then I'm like, the mom that I was like, and at the time, through all the infertility and my depression, my husband and I weren't getting along as well. And I had just decided, well, I don't want to leave my three kids here to suffer and have to go through that grief because I'm not sure if my husband's going to be able to help them through that grief. And so I decided I was going to take my life and I was going to take the life of my three kids as well. And that still just brings me to tears to think about that. And so my husband and I got into a big fight one night, and I left the house. And this is where, Dr. Cassell, you said from pajamas to purpose. I left the house in my pajamas. I have these pink footy pajamas that I got those on. I left the house. I didn't know where I was going. I'm just driving around, and I ended up in the Walgreens parking lot over on Memorial Drive. And I thought something came to me and said, just call your pastor's wife. So I called my first lady. And I don't know whether it was something in my voice. Maybe it was that I told her, I'm just sitting in the Walgreens parking lot in my pajamas. Something just told her, though, Jill, we're going to pray, but I need you to go see somebody
Wow.
tomorrow. You have got to talk to somebody about what's going on in your life. And I really credit her, with her and my pastor with really saving my life. So that next morning, I got on the phone, I called my husband's EAP, and I got a counselor. I went to see her, and she was wonderful. She's a wonderful Christian counselor. And at the end of that session, she prayed with me. And I think that was the most powerful thing that she could do. But I determined at the end of that, this prayer was good, but I don't think she could help me. She was an older white woman. And I love her to this day, but we just didn't quite click. I don't think she really got my experience as an African American woman. So, I terminated my services with her, and I found one more counselor, African American woman. I thought, okay, this is gonna be it. She's a Christian counselor. We're gonna be right here. That didn't work out as well. Because as a counselor, I was kind of struggling with what do you do on this side, on the couch, and she couldn't really help me get to the place where I could open up, where I could get beyond my head and really share from my heart. So I said, but I'm not giving up. I'm gonna try one more time.
Wow.
And got a wonderful psychiatric nurse practitioner, and she just no judgment, no
Wow.
anything. We weren't really aligned faith wise, but she didn't judge me for my faith. She asked questions about it, and everything I told her, she just accepted me. And eventually, I was able to work through those issues, and I felt myself just getting better and better and better until one day I'm driving on 285 and I'm thinking of this a new curriculum that I wanted to develop for married women, and the ideas were just popping like popcorn in my brain. And all of a sudden I realized that's my mind. I was like, this is who I used to be
Wow.
before my depression. I mean, I was so excited I had to pull over off the road so I wouldn't have an accident. But, I remember that day so vividly. Is this is the day, they talk about um, losing your mind.
Mm.
And I really felt like that's what happened to me. I just lost my mind, all sense of self. But I got it back that day. And since that day, I've done lots of things in the mental health field. I think it has made me a better therapist because I really understand what it's like to want to get better, but you just don't have the motivation to do it. I understand, some people judge people who, are thinking about suicide or taking their lives, but I understand what it's like to want to live, but feel like you can't live at the same time. But, I praise God for my recovery. And I kind of now look back on my whole life and I realize that that had to happen as part of my preparation to be able to do the things that I'm doing in the field of behavioral health now. So it wasn't that I couldn't achieve, it's that God said you need something else to be able to do all that I want you to do. So, I thank him for that time. And sometimes when I come on struggles now, I look at those things and I recognize I was like, that's just the devil trying to get me. But I tell the devil all the time, you should have killed me back then when you had a chance, because now, I know and I walk boldly in my faith. And part of my mission is to help faith communities realize that there are people sitting right there in your pews Sunday after Sunday after Sunday who are hurting. And we've got to find a way to open up that dialogue, let people know that they're accepted right where they are and that we are here to help. So that's a little bit of my story. There's lots more little things in there, but I think that really captures what I really would want people to hear, that, mental illness is no respecter of persons. It can happen to anybody. You can come from any kind of family. It can happen to you, and it can happen out of the blue all of a sudden. But there's help that's available, and
Wow.
recovery is possible.
Oh, mercy, mercy. First of all, I don't know if you could see me holding on to my chair, trying to contain myself. I mean,
I'm trying to contain myself too.
when you got to talking about faith, could you say it again? Faith is all you need for a barren woman. Please say that again.
He said, faith is enough to make a barren woman believe God for a baby.
Oh, mercy, mercy. We could stay there all day.
Yeah.
We could shout about it, but we're going to contain ourselves. But we want somebody that's listening to receive hope today. We want you to receive that faith experience, whatever your faith experience might be. And we're so grateful for you sharing your story, Lady Jill. Thank you. Thank you for taking your pain and turning it into purpose. Thank you for giving voice to hurt, pain, recovery, resilience. I mean, you've just given voice and hope to so many people. And I love what you said, that mental health is no respecter of person. It can happen to anyone at any time, regardless of what your background might be, what your experiences might be. The list goes on and on. But we want people to know that wherever you find yourself, perhaps you find yourself in a dark place right now. We are coming into that dark place wherever you are, and we're speaking hope, we're speaking light, we're speaking faith, we're speaking recovery and resilience, and the list goes on and on. Man, this is absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. And our hope is that others would now feel such a sense of release to share their own stories. Let's go to our next question. Tell us about some of your experiences surrounding mental health and suicide. So you've shared your story, but tell us a little bit more, if you can, about your experiences.
Over the years, Dr. Cassell, I've had the opportunity to work with so many people um, who are struggling with depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, just kind of the gamut. And what I've kind of realized is that, one, we need more resources in our communities, and resources that reach people where they are. So many people, by the time they they come to me at my counseling practice. I mean, they've been struggling for a long time. And, I kind of asked them, what is it that made you, right now decide to come in? And generally it's that, they're facing a crisis. It's come to a point where there's really no option but to get help. But I often think about what if they were able to access help earlier on, and I think about, well, what stopped them? And the same thing that stopped me, the stigma, not wanting to let people know that you need help, not being able to ask for help, not feeling like people are going to understand your story when you come to tell them. So part of my purpose now is working to end stigma, to help people understand that it's okay to not be okay. And there are resources that you can reach out to, whether it's, at your church or a local mental health clinic,
Mhm.
or, any of the thousands of private practitioners that there are here, in the state of Georgia. That help is available, but until people realize that if I ask for help, people aren't going to give me the side eye or look at me crazy, or I'm not going to lose my job if I, reach out. I know a lot of people have employee assistance programs at their employers that pay for free counseling for them. But, the thought is, well, if I go, my employer is going to know and I'm going to be in jeopardy of losing my job. So over the years, I think one of the biggest things I found is that we got to keep chipping. I don't even want to say chipping away at stigma. We got to be knocking down, big
Yes.
chunks of it at a time, because people are dying
Yes.
because there's fear and embarrassment and shame around reaching out for help. And when you get to the crisis point, it's a lot more challenging to help a person than if we get them, at the early intervention stage, where we can teach those resiliency skills, where we can teach problem solving skills, communication skills, all those things that can help mitigate, the issues and maybe prevent a mental health crisis. So I would say that's, out of my experiences, those are probably the biggest things that I have, looked at to see where I could, maybe help and make some difference.
Thank you so much. And I love what you said, right? It's okay not to be okay. It is. And we want to say that to people. We want to shout that. We want that to be clear. It's okay to not be okay. But we also want to say to you, it's not okay not to get the help that you need, right?
Absolutely.
So we want you, and that's what you've highlighted, get the help that you need. And I want to circle back in affirming the work of your pastor's wife and your pastor, and how they came alongside you in speaking life and speaking hope to you. And one of the things that I often say to people, you don't have to be a therapist to be therapeutic. You don't have to be a
Mhm.
clinician to care. Wherever you are, you can be that safe place. You can offer hope. You can offer that listening ear. You can offer the questions that need to be asked, and
Mhm.
you can refer people. So I want to again affirm those of you who are listening, right? Again, you don't have to have credentials and license and be as great and amazing as Jill is in her field, right? We want you to know that you can speak light and speak hope wherever you are, whatever your experience might be. And you and I, we're so clear on our faith experience and our faith background. And I love that you're speaking to churches. And saying to churches, be aware of those who are silently suffering in your pews, right? So,
Mhm.
in our churches, again, we speak to a variety of people. So, whatever your faith experience might be, please just be aware of those who are suffering in silence with the shame and the stigma. Let's move forward to our next question. What do you want to say to a loved one or someone who may have been impacted by suicide, maybe a survivor or someone who may have suicidal ideations?
I think the biggest thing, and I know my husband to this day feels like, he's like, well, why didn't I see it?
Mhm.
And could I have done something more? So I want to say, to family members who have had loved ones either to die by suicide or to attempt suicide, that it's not your fault. Um, it's not easy, for trained clinicians all the time to see the
Mhm.
signs of suicide. And it's a difficult conversation to have. There's a myth out there that if you talk to somebody really directly about suicide, it will cause them to go ahead and attempt the act. And that's just a myth.
Yes.
You can't talk somebody, into suicide. That's just a real personal, internal struggle that comes, when the person gets to a lack of hope. So it's not for a lack of your skills or a lack of your love for the person. It's really them getting to um feeling that lack of hope. But I want to say to people, we've got, trained therapists, but as Dr. Cassell said, there are things that, just we as that lay people can
Mhm.
do. There's training that you can get so that you can recognize the signs. I say this to parents all the time, especially with what's going on with our youth since the COVID epidemic. The suicide rate among, youth in Georgia is just soaring at an alarming rate. So I want parents to be able to recognize, and there are trainings. There's one called QPR, which is
Mhm.
question, persuade, refer. There's mental health first aid, and these teach you things to look for, but also teach you how to have that conversation with people, how to ask them, are you thinking about ending your life? And sometimes that's all people need.
Right.
On this side, we're feeling embarrassed about even having the thoughts, but if somebody else brings it up, there's this kind of freedom of being able to say, yes, I am thinking about ending my life. And then knowing what the resources are in the community that you can refer somebody to. So I guess that's what I would say is one, it's not your fault. But two, there are things that we can do to better educate ourselves so that we can begin to recognize those signs and symptoms early before the people that we care about, the people in our circles, get to that crisis point.
Wow, excellent. And that's so important. I know there's so many who are survivors and the guilt and the shame that they walk through and that they navigate. And we just want to rehearse that for you again, that it's not your fault, that suicide is complex, it's complicated. We do know from the work that we do that there's no one reason why someone takes their life by suicide. It's an accumulation of things.
Mhm.
And one of the things the way that we frame that is it's the last drop in a cup that was already overflowing. So a
Mm,
lot of
that's
times
good.
the cup was already full, and that last drop is what it was that caused the overflow and the suicidal ideation and possibly the attempt, right? So again, we just want you to know that you can come alongside people in offering hope. As we begin to wrap up, what do you want people to know about managing our mental health?
That it's important.
Yeah.
It is just as important as managing your physical health. Like, I'm diabetic, and so I make regular visits to my primary care doctor because I want to stay on top of that. I want to know, are there any new treatments out there? What am I do? What do you see different from last month to this month that I need to be doing? I'm looking for recommendations. I'm reading everything that I can, working on, my diet, working on my exercise. I'm committed to living a healthier physical lifestyle, but we have got to be just that committed about our mental health. The diabetes that impacts my pancreas and things like that, but mental health that impacts my brain, and my brain is just as significant, maybe more significant of an organ in my body. So why would I neglect taking care of my brain? So go and get mental health checkups. You don't have to have a crisis or a problem to talk to a trained physician or a mental health peer. It's just something we should regularly do. To sometimes it helps to just talk it out, and sometimes it can help you figure out a problem that you've been struggling with, just to bounce that idea off somebody else. But if you do see signs and symptoms, don't wait until the crisis. Go early and see somebody so that you can kind of get a handle and learn new skills. But your mental health matters. And I always like to say there's no physical health without mental health. So I think that's if I there had to be one takeaway for
Yeah.
people, it's that you don't have, health if you don't have your mental health. Your brain is important. So take care of that like you would any other, physical condition or physical system in your body. It's key to living a full, happy life is that we got to get this brain, make sure that we're caring for it as we should.
Wow, thank you so much. There's no health without mental health. Man, we want to say that. We want to shout that. We want you to get that word out that we believe in mental health parity. That's the work that we do, that we give
Mhm.
the same priority to medical health that we give to mental health. So we want you to be taking care of your whole person. You are a holistic person, body, mind, soul, spirit, your biopsychosocial, spiritual aspect of who you are is so important. So, my friends, we want you to be taking care of yourself. Well, as we wrap up our time together, we told you at the beginning that our topic was out of pajamas into purpose. And one of the most vivid pictures I have of Jill Mays in a session that we did together in our work together was Jill stepped up to the podium. I'll never forget this. She stepped up, you stepped up wearing pink. Was it pink at the time?
Pink, it was pink.
Pink pajamas. And then shortly after that, you took a moment and then you took off those pink pajamas and you put on a clergy robe. My friend, my partner in this work, I'm telling you, when I saw that picture, that just struck home to me. And we want people to know that much like Jill Mays has stepped out of her pajamas and has stepped into many robes and many new attire, we want that for you. We want you to step out of wherever you are, whatever you're experiencing, step into purpose, become the best version of yourself,
Mhm.
fulfill your God given dreams and your purpose. That's our hope today. And thank you. Thank you for that picture. That picture will always sit with me. And my friends, I just want you to kind of get that picture in your mind. Here we have an amazing woman with a story of recovery and resilience. She was in pajamas for a series of time, right, for a long period of time, but she stepped into purpose, and she now wears so many different robes. But that clergy robe and seeing that spoke volumes to me. How can people reach out to you, Jill?
Again, I have a private practice in Stone Mountain, Georgia, Ezer Counseling, and people can reach me at 770-540-7681. Or you can reach me on Facebook or Instagram at Ezer Counseling. I'd be happy to love to come talk to groups, love to come talk to churches. I do lots of training and consultation. But again, love to just sit across from people on the couch in my office and help in ways that I can. I'm also an associate minister at New Piney Grove Baptist Church in Decatur. Love to have people come over there. We call ourselves the family of encouragers, and I know from personal experience with my pastor and my first wife, they're very concerned about people who are hurting, and we point people in the direction of getting help. So again, yeah, reach out to me. I do a coaching group for married women. That's kind of part of my purpose as well. We meet in little intimate groups and we learn about how to be better wives and how to be better women. So again, I'll give my number for people to write that down, 770-540-7681. Would love to work with you.
Wow. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for your amazing story. Thank you that you've changed the narratives, that you've created new norms, and just an amazing sense of self. Thank you for your testimony, right? We speak that language because, again, that's our faith walk, right? We are embedded in the faith. But thank you so much. And of course, all of Jill's information will come up on the screen in a little while. We do want to remind you that that if you or anyone may be in crisis, You can call the recently launched 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. That came alive on July 16th. So if you're in crisis, please reach out to that number, 988. Also, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's a 24-hour crisis line at 1-800 273 8255. That's going to come on the screen. So again, if you or anyone might be in crisis, these are numbers that you can reach out to for 24-hour crisis intervention. Also, for more resources about mental health, suicide awareness, disability support services, I invite you personally to visit our website at c3inthistogether.com. That's going to come up on the screen. And if you've been impacted by this video, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, C3 in This Together, and share this video, comment, and let us know how you've been impacted by our time together today. Because our hope, as we've said, is that together, we want to bring hope to others. So, my friends, thank you again for joining us for 30 minutes in our own voice. And we look to see you again for another in the series of 30 minutes in our own voice. Lady Jill, thank you again for being with us. So many are going to receive hope, so many are going to be encouraged. And we believe that through this medium, so many people will decide to stay. And we want to say that to somebody. We want you to stay. We want you to know that you matter, your life matters, your mental health matters. We want you to stay. This world needs your pain. Thank you. This world needs your pain. So please stay and live out your God given purpose and destiny. Many blessings to you, Miss Jill,
Thank
you and
you.
your family. And thank you for the work that you do. And I know we'll be seeing each other as we continue to work together here in the state of Georgia. Thanks again, my friends. We'll see you next time.